Destiny, a game that's been many things to many different people, and if I'm being honest, this video is going to be very bittersweet. First, Destiny was released back in September 2014. It's been in my life as long as it hasn't. I remember rushing home after middle school to play the beta, the joy when it released. I had been there for it all. I was there when the game released, I was there when the Dark Below nearly killed the game, I was there for House of Wolves, the great resurgence with Taken King, and the beautiful finale that was Rise of Iron. I was there for all the solstices, the Halloween events, and even the original Sparrow Racing League. I had maxed my characters time and time again solely just because I wanted a different look, different hairstyle, different race, and so on. And then the Destiny 2 beta dropped. It was one of the first games I played when I fully transitioned over to PCs. I convinced all of my IRL friends to buy it and toughed through the disappointments of Chris Osiris, was hopeful with Warmind, convinced everyone to come back for Forsaken, held out hope for Shadowkeep and Beyond Light, and jumped back in for the tail end of Witch Queen, and somehow found enjoyment with Lightfall before finally playing and leaving in Final Shape. All this to say, I had seen the brightest and the darkest parts of this game. And no game has ever had been this influential to me as Destiny was. But sadly, unlike most things that come and go, the memories that live with me and my friends alone, with almost no recordings to immortalize the best 11 years of our life. Destiny did something no other game really could manage. It was the perfect storm to create the same memories you typically get from MMOs for people who never touched those games in their lives. I've been sitting with the news of Destiny 2 closing since its closing its live service, and the inevitability that Bungie will die along with any chance of D3. So that's why I'm making this video, to immortalize 11 years of memories and share how much joy this franchise brought me and give it its final farewell. There was one memory that stood out to me as my earliest. It was how I met my first raid group. Back in Destiny 1, you could see other teams opening up the raids while you drove around on patrol, and Vault of Glass had just released maybe a week prior. Not important. I was doing my patrols on Venus when I saw this group of 6 opening the vault and thought, fuck it. I'm not doing anything important. Let me lend them a hand, and I'm gonna go in the vault. I'll go back and do whatever I was doing. Well, what happened instead was I received a party invite on PlayStation, and they told me one of theirs had to leave and they needed another to fill a spot. This single event, this sheer random encounter, led me to my first raid team, which I played alongside for 4 years till Destiny 2 released. Half of my jokes that I still make nowadays came from this group, and to say it influenced my development as a person is an understatement. I was the youngest, somewhere between 14 and 17, and they all treated me like one of the family. For a shy kid like me, they became memories I cherished for years, and even now I remember the joking, the shit talk, and the shared agony and pain as we cleared each raid from our first Vault of Glass to Crota, Oryx, and the Wrath of the Machine. It's funny because I had some extreme luck in D1. Before the House of Wolves DLC, I actually managed to get 11 Galahorns. It became a running joke that if I was in the raid, I would rattle the good loot, and everyone else would be left with what's left over. Once I even broke one of those Galahorns down in front of them just to screw with them a bit, and it was all great jokes. I remember early on when they introduced me to the loot cave, the one on Earth. They put an Easter egg in D2 with it even. But we would just chill there for hours, talking about life, talking about whatever, as we just shoot into this random fucking cave for whoever knows how many hours. When Destiny 2 released, I had fully transitioned to PC along with most of my IRL school friends and people from my childhood. And I went from the clueless kid who got picked up by this random group to the experienced raider that a lot of them relied on, and now I was the group leader. Maybe not with the same group, but I was I was now the one making the group. I was the one that was putting it all together, putting the strats up, and I miss it. You know, half the things I said with this new group were things I took directly from the first, and we still joke about a lot of the bullshit and a lot of the funniness and the pain and the high moments that came from the raids we did during Destiny 2. Probably the earliest one I could think of is back during Callus, not too long after the raid series finally dropped. I was a lore fanatic at the time. You know, I went through all the grimoires back in D1, and I wanted to know every single little bit about this universe back then, and I was a lore fanatic. My friend RJ kind of gave me a lot of shit for it. Not maliciously, but, you know, he was fucking with me. You get the point. We had finally reached the War Dogs encounter with the Flower Garden, and I think I had spent 15 minutes, like 1-5, explaining the mechanics of what to do here and there. And remember, these were all people who had never played Destiny before. This was all of their first times in this raid, first time in the encounter. And I wanted to make sure they got it all right, and yeah, I got rage baited hard. Yeah, to say the least, he kind of was fucking with me. I blew up a bit, and this wasn't the only time it happened. He made a habit to screw with me and to rage bait me, and yeah. But honestly, I miss it. Yeah, it was infuriating at the time. It was very infuriating at the time. I thought I was gonna strangle a dude. But no, looking back on it now, I want it to come back. And it won't. Yeah, we still talk about it, we still laugh, and this is really one of the only games where we actively think back to everything that happened and, you know, all the memories that came with it. There was a lot of other times too. I know my friend Jared, bless his heart, he's terrible at focusing. He cannot for the life of him focus, no matter how hard you try, which makes delivering mechanics to him really, really hard. And we still make jokes with him all the time about what the responses he'd have and all the things that would come from it. Like, I remember when we were explaining Vault, and I was explaining how you do the Oracle section during Atheon. Went through the whole explanation, talked him through each step, and at one point he went, "Oh, sorry, Carson's dancing distracted me." And this was after 6 hours of just trying to get through this raid. And yeah, I was about to lose it, and everyone was laughing. It was a great time. And this happened a lot, especially with Jared. And honestly, I love the guy. It is very hard to get through some of these activities with him, but would I trade it for anything else? No. I would do it again and again. But those times have passed. JT was probably the one I played with the most, at least for Destiny 2. If I couldn't manage something or I couldn't explain something properly, it was always JT that would fill in the gaps. You know, if I needed someone that I knew would do the mechs and not mess it up, he was the one I'd rely on. We did everything that you could do in that game together. You know, every week for 7 years we would do the raids, farm public events, the fucking recluse grind. That was painful, and me and him did it side by side for, I think, a full week before we eventually hit the rank requirements to get it. And, you know, it was some of the best times I've ever had. Even when Warmind released and the group was at an all-time low, and, you know, me and him would still send up an LFG post, knock the raids out, I don't think dungeons were out at this point. But then we go back, farm public events, and, you know, we just enjoyed our time together. This is actually how we came up with one of our favorite inside jokes. The dreaded Mueller joke. We had done an LFG. This was not for the Hydra raid, but for the other Callus one that wasn't Callus. And we got this guy called Mueller, and he was the definition of, if someone can make the mistake and if someone can misunderstand it, they are the person that would do it. And this caused what should have been a 2-hour raid into a 6-hour endeavor. And basically trauma bonded over this individual's ludicrous level of no skill. And not trying to shit on the guy, but we had to keep ourselves sane somehow. We played every Iron Banner that came around, and I remember, when Trials dropped, when the Immortal first came out, we spent day after day, hour after hour, deep into late night, usually along with RJ, just trying to get that flawless so we can get the Recluse and never have to touch Trials again. There was one time, oh my god. So, I still hold, and he may say otherwise, and he can say otherwise if he wants, but I still hold that me and JT were basically carrying RJ through most of it, and he was dragging us constantly. And I had 8 of 9 wins. I was right there, I could taste it, and then we lost twice in a row to Titans, running grenade launchers, just spam skating, and then just another set of super tryhards that me and JT were holding our own, RJ was not. And I was pretty close to breaking something. And honestly, sure, it was infuriating, right? But I mean, just going back to what was said earlier in this was, I still wouldn't trade it for anything. In fact, I would love to go back to it. I would love to go back to the times where this was the norm. But I understand that everything has a time. I remember Last Wish was the crux of a lot of things, and kind of was when I started playing with this third group at the same time. Call them Group 3 for short. I'm still friends with most of that group, but without Destiny, things haven't really been the same. They don't talk as much, we don't play as much. Destiny was kind of that catalyst for us. And it's just not the same as it used to be. I know with my second group, we played through all the reprised raids, Vault, we tried Crota. I don't remember if we beat it, but we got pretty damn close if we didn't. And then Oryx, which had its own lovely array of fuckery. But this was all super huge nostalgia to me, right? Reminder of the old D1 days when my first group took me in. But now I was the one that was showing them how to do these raids. I was the one leading these raids instead of being the follower for it, and it was a good feeling. And I never really had this feeling, even with when I would do FF Final Fantasy raids. It was never felt the same as what Destiny raids provided. Not talking about mechanics or gameplay, but just the feel and the vibe that came with it. But with that Vault raid, for example, this was kind of a great example of how things would go. We went in completely unprepared. We had a bunch of our friends that had just started Destiny and were completely unexperienced with how Destiny plays, and 20 to 30 light levels too low. And even with me and JT forcefully trying to cover oracles right before the Templar phase, it was a shit show. We were fighting for our lives, and we couldn't get past the oracles. And, we were laughing because I'm like, guys, I did this years ago. It is not that hard. And, we came back the next week, and it's like a switch. It just suddenly worked out. I remember not a reprise raid, but when we went and did Deepstone Crypt, I'd always really wanted to do this raid, but I couldn't do it on release because a lot of the group wasn't playing at that time, and I finally got everyone together and we ran through it, and it's still one of my favorite raids out of D2, and it was everyone else's too because it was really easy, and we didn't have to sit there for 2 weeks grinding through it because people were messing up. But it still had its own brand of fun and fuckery, people messing up the final phase and trapping each other and just screaming at each other like, you fucker, you trapped me, blah, blah. And it was just fun. It was just fun, and I haven't really felt that in any other game for a long time. Witch Queen was more the status quo. Lightfall, we started to see some of the cracks. We lost a decent amount of our group. JT was still there. RJ was here and there. I don't remember if Carson was still playing at that point, but we still had a few of us. We were still playing. We did the raid. God, that raid. That raid was something. But yeah, it was fun. And because of losing everyone, I started playing with the third group a lot more, and when Final Shape dropped, that was kind of the bittersweet realization that this was the beginning of the end. I never finished the raid that came with it. We got to the final phase, and we never ended up finishing it. Group 2 only had myself, JT, and sometimes Jared, and Group 3 was starting to drop off as well, and then once we got to Renegades, I pretty much checked out from that point because Star Wars collab just felt weird, and I didn't even realize Edge of Fate dropped. I was just waiting for Destiny 3 at that point, or some crazy expansion to pull me back. But as we all know now, that's not what ended up happening. One thing was, one day between all this, I don't remember if it was before or after Final Shape, but I was feeling nostalgic and said, fuck it, let me boot up Destiny 1 and go fuck around for a bit. I drove around the Plaguelands for a bit, or whatever the Cosmodrome second area was called from Rise of Iron. And I was looking at my friends list, I was looking to see if I could find anyone from my old group, right? Reconnect with the original raid team. Share where my life had gone, see how their lives have been going, and yeah. That's when I learned from our original raid lead that one of our players, as goofy as it sounds, his name was Bob. I learned that he had died a few years prior, and that the group had pretty much fallen apart. There was, little pockets of all the people that ended up joining that still played, but, the group was gone, pretty much. I didn't know how to react to it, to be honest, because I never intended to just leave that side away. I mean, I had Destiny 2 on console. I bought all the way up to Warmind on console, and that's when I finally was like, well, I'm not really playing on console. I guess I'll just stop and, wish the raid team best of luck. But it still was kind of hard when I heard that news and saw that, both someone I was really close to was gone and the raid team itself was gone. Then, yeah. I've talked about this feeling with a lot of my friends, and I never really had the right words until now, I think. Not much in terms of the gaming space have really given us that experience that Destiny did. Sure, we had multiplayer games we played together. I mean, I still remember all the Siege times. I still have the old clips, you know? When Halo MCC came out, and all my friends that, you know, half of them were PlayStation people, got to play MCC when it was, you know, riding high. But it was never what Destiny did. It could never replicate what Destiny provided for us. And it's hard, you know? It'll never replicate those same memories, and it's a signal of things to change and things that'll never come back. Which, you know, I'm struggling to cope with, you know? There's not really anything that we get the whole group together, like 6 friends in total, to fucking work together as we're yelling at each other to accomplish something. I mean, yes, you can look at any MMO and say, well, there you go. But something about the way Destiny did it was different. And I don't know how to explain it. On top of the fact that, well, very little, if any, of my friends would go and play an MMO, but they played Destiny because it was a first-person shooter. But, you know, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to convince them to play an MMO with me, and that's alright, but it sucks. You know, that was our Fridays, that was our weekends, and now people have jobs, partners, and their own lives, and it feels like each year we go by, we stray further and further from any games that could replicate what Destiny did. Will I and others be fine? Of course. It's a game. I'm not gonna die because it stopped. Other people are not gonna die just because it stopped. And we'll move forward. But I know I'm not alone when we are effectively grieving the loss of something that a lot of us held dear. Destiny 3 is not coming. I know a lot of people hate to hear that. A petition's not going to change that, and no matter how much we kick and scream, what it's done is done. Sony's not going to greenlight it, and if they do, I'll eat my words gladly. But we've seen this with Titanfall 3. We've seen this with all sorts of other franchises, especially ones owned by Sony. And I don't want to put out false hope when I don't believe it myself. Destiny is done. It's a cherished chapter of my life because for many like myself, it was more than just a game. It was a childhood, a continuous stream of memories, and something that you couldn't replicate anywhere else. It was something that had been so ingrained with us for so long that it's like losing a part of yourself. It was a good run, Guardians, and it's time to say goodbye to something truly special. I'll be playing June 9th when this video goes out, to give this chapter of my life the final send-off it needs and deserves, and to show support of something that I'm going to truly miss. See you all in the stars.